I think in one of your slides, you have this nice plot that is one of the ways you show that LLMs are limited. I wonder if you could talk about hallucinations from your perspectives, the why hallucinations happen from large language models and why and to what degree is that a fundamental flaw of large language models.
Right. So because of the autoregressive prediction, every time an LLM produces a token or a word, there is some level of probability for that word to take you out of the set of reasonable answers. And if you assume, which is a very strong assumption, that the probability of such error is that those errors are independent across a sequence of tokens being produced. Mm-hmm. What that means is that every time you produce a token, the probability that you stay within the set of correct answer decreases, and it decreases exponentially.
So there's a strong, like you said, assumption there that if there's a non-zero probability of making a mistake, which there appears to be, then there's going to be a kind of drift.
Yeah. And that drift is exponential. It's like errors accumulate, right? So the probability that an answer would be nonsensical increases exponentially with the number of tokens.
Is that obvious to you, by the way? Like, well, so mathematically speaking, maybe, but like, isn't there a kind of gravitational pull towards the truth? Because on average, hopefully, the truth is well represented in the training set.
No, it's basically a struggle against the curse of dimensionality. So the way you can correct for this is that you fine-tune the system by having it produce answers for all kinds of questions that people might come up with. Mm-hmm. And people are people, so a lot of the questions that they have are very similar to each other. So you can probably cover, 80% or whatever of questions that people will ask by, collecting data, and then you fine tune the system to produce good answers for all of those things, and it's probably going to be able to learn that because it's got a lot of capacity to learn. But then there is, the enormous set of prompts that you have not covered during training. And that set is enormous. Like within the set of all possible prompts, the proportion of prompts that have been used for training is absolutely tiny. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny subset of all possible prompts. And so the system will behave properly on the prompts that has been either trained, pre-trained, or fine-tuned. But then there is an entire space of things that it cannot possibly have been trained on because it's just the number is gigantic. So whatever training the system has been subject to produce appropriate answers, you can break it by finding out a prompt that will be outside of the set of prompts it's been trained on, or things that are similar, and then it will just spew complete nonsense.
When you say prompt, do you mean that exact prompt, or do you mean a prompt that's like in many parts very different than, like, is it that easy to ask a question or to say a thing that hasn't been said before on the internet?
I mean, people have come up with things where, like, you put essentially a random sequence of characters in the prompt, and that's enough to kind of throw the system into a mode where, it's going to answer something completely different than it would have answered without this. Mm-hmm. So that's a way to jailbreak the system, basically get it, go outside of its conditioning, right?
So that's a very clear demonstration of it, but of course, that goes outside of what it's designed to do, right? If you actually stitch together reasonably grammatical sentences, is it that easy to break it?
Yeah, some people have done things like you write a sentence in English, right? That has or you ask a question in English, and it produces a perfectly fine answer, and then you just substitute a few words by the same word in another language. And all of a sudden, the answer is complete nonsense.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is, like, which fraction of prompts that humans are likely to generate are going to break the system?
So the problem is that there is a long tail.
Yes.
This is an issue that a lot of people have realize, in social networks and stuff like that, which is, there's a very, very long tail of things that people will ask. Mm-hmm. And you can fine tune the system for the 80% or whatever of the things that most people will ask. And then this long tail is so large that you're not going to be able to fine tune the system for all the conditions. And in the end, the system ends up being kind of a giant lookup table, right? Essentially, which is not really what you want. You want systems that can reason, certainly they can plan.